tuning in to the online broadcast network, AFTERBUZZ TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment. AFTERBUZZ TV, the destination for TV superfans. Producing aftershows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows. Interviewing celebrities and showrunners. And bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Hello, AfterBuzzers. We're here doing another AfterBuzz TV after show for Disney's Girl Meets World Season 1, Episode 11, Girl Meets World of Terror. I'm your host, Kristen Elizabeth Snyder, and my other AfterBuzz TV ghost, Lee Epstein.
Hello. I thought that joke was funny once in the show, but I don't know if you really need to be repeating it.
No,
but yes.
I can't repeat it.
No, it's not. Well, nothing's going to be as delivered as well as you know, my favorite actor, favorite character from the show, Augie.
Which
Ventura.
I have to mention, you're kind of looking a little bit more like him as the show progresses.
Oh, did you notice? I'll show you. I've been growing my hair because I want to be this 6-year-old child, Augie Ventura, or 7, however old you are now. So I'm aspiring to be like him. So it's an aspirational haircut, yeah. And I'm glad you noticed. Yeah, thank you.
So I know you just loved this show.
I have this perm done, actually. I have totally straight hair. I just had this curl added in. Yeah.
It's working.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
So I know this was probably your favorite episode because Augie was just the ghost or host of the entire show, which was fantastic.
Amazing. I mean, that's what I keep saying. You know, we keep doing the predictions, and I keep saying, I predict we're going to see more of Augie. And look, hello, psychic, thank you. So I think that
it's the hairs helping you.
I know. But you know what also it's funny, it's probably lost on most viewers of this show except for the older ones, but it's really kind of an homage, if you will, to the Alfred Hitchcock Hour and other sci-fi shows. You know, when he comes in and there's his profile is on the wall, and that's like what Alfred Hitchcock Hour was. And other, I think maybe there's also some
there was that
like Twilight Zone kind
show too. Do you remember
the guys would watch the movies?
Tales from the Crypt.
Oh, Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah, that reminded me of this. Stephen in the booth.
We have a live Foley guy, live sound effects from Stephen. That's amazing.
Yeah, feel free to play Halloween notes all throughout this show. Yeah, it's a Halloween show.
I'm gonna try to throw some other sounds that need effects.
I'll just do the cliche horror.
Those are great.
Stephen, what a falsetto on you, Stephen.
Just
I
throw
never
those
knew.
in whenever you feel like it. Flash the lights because this is our Halloween episode.
Fun fact, I never met World because I never went through puberty.
Dun dun dun.
I don't even know what that
kidding,
means.
Guys.
Stephen, this is a family after show.
It is. It's the coming of age of the girl meeting world.
Well,
our lights flash, right? We need some special effects in here.
I mean, I think
where's the flashing light button, Stephen?
Right there.
No, that's turning the lights off. That's just got dark. No.
How about there?
Oh, there we go.
Oh, there we go. Special
God.
Halloween. Now it's really great.
I'm like, yes,
really great.
This is so scary.
The world of terror. AfterBuzz.
No, it was really good having him. It was funny. I mean, and you know how he talked to breaking the fourth wall. He talked to the camera a bunch of times, and also Topanga. I kind of like that. I mean,
I did too.
It's obviously not typical in television in a sitcom like this, but it was appropriate for this. No one's listening to me, right? They're just watching the lights flash.
But it was awesome.
Why am I even trying?
You're welcome.
Yeah, right. Thank you. So I loved having him, talk to the camera and that he was talking to the audience, and he was great. I thought he was just really, really. I'm glad he was showcased and he had the chance to be great. It was all him, and he did a great job with it. It was really impressive acting for a boy. Really, I shouldn't say young man. He's like 7, so yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah. Wow, he's just probably having the time of his life right now, right? Oh wow.
He or his ghostwriter are having the time of their lives on Twitter.
That's
thank you for tweeting us,
Yeah,
Augie/Augie's mom.
Augie follows me.
I know, it's so
I love
sweet.
It.
Yeah.
So basically, the moral of this episode is sometimes things aren't as scary as they seem.
Exactly.
Or like you were saying earlier, overcoming fears through knowledge.
Through knowledge, yeah, exactly. Like basically all the people who are afraid of something, whether it's Farkle being afraid of getting hit with a ball, or Augie being afraid of the monster under his bed.
Which was the best part of the episode.
Amazing.
But before we talk about him, we should probably talk about Riley being afraid to stay at Maya's.
Afraid to stay at Maya's, right.
Which I definitely went through that. And I didn't
You didn't like to have sleepovers.
Friends.
You would only have sleepovers if they came to you.
Right.
Yeah, I loved sleepovers. But no, there's definitely some kids they are not comfortable sleeping out.
Yeah. I don't know
it's
that
a real thing.
Or else my mom wouldn't let me. It was one of the two.
Well, here also she had the fear, that Riley had the fear that Maya lived in a less nice neighborhood, that it might be shady and sketchy.
It did come across that way, yeah.
Yeah, but it seemed like it was okay in the end. Basically, all of the situations that come up of fear, and they're almost phobias.
Yes.
The seriousness, I mean, at a certain point. But
once Farkle gets hit by the ball, he realizes
right.
it's not such a big deal.
It's the same thing with like real phobias, that adults have when they go to therapy, and people, let's say you're afraid of flying, and they'll expose you little by little to, going to the airport and then walking on the airplane, little by little, exposing people to things that they're afraid of. And basically it works because, in a lot of cases, because people, once they know, then they become less afraid. And I think the extension of that lesson here, especially with the monster at the end, if you see the monster as kind of a metaphor for other people who are seen as the other, who are unlike ourselves, I think that's the lesson here, that, it's easy to talk about other groups of people who are not like us and say, oh, all of them are scary, different. And once people start to meet people who are part of that group, they see them as an individual, not just as a scary other thing.
Definitely.
And they become familiar, and they see elements of themselves in what used to be the other. And I think that's kind of it's not really about monsters under your bed. It's not only a 6-year-old problem, it's completely an adult thing also, of just being afraid of things that you see as other. And once you actually get to know them on an intimate, personal level, you can often change your views.
Yeah, like exploring the unknown. And then you're
sure.
comfortable with it and you realize exactly what it is. Like the unknown bunny that becomes a bigger bunny turned out to just be the lights from across the street at some advertisement.
Yeah, or the monster
Oh, I loved that part. How great was it whenever the monster was like, "Oh, I'm leaving now," and Augie's like, "Why?" And he's like, "'Cause you're not afraid of me anymore." And that's sort of what happens exactly when you meet your fear. It leaves.
And it's the same thing with I just saw a great movie about this. I won't get into it, but about people, about two people who had been in a horrible confrontation and years later reconciling.
Wow.
From really,
Do you remember
crazy
what it was
story.
called?
I want to say Forgiveness. It's a documentary out now. It's about it comes through the Museum of Tolerance here in LA, and basically a guy who was a white supremacist at one point had kicked and almost killed a guy because he was gay.
Oh no.
Years later, they reconnected through the Museum of Tolerance, where they were both speaking.
Oh my gosh.
And they put together that they had the same story, that like, oh my God, I was the guy who almost killed you. Really crazy. But it was another story of that exact thing, that that one guy was the other guy's monster at one point. He was afraid of him.
It's a great
like
way
you're
of
gay,
saying
you're
it.
different, And then once he realized that this was another person very much like himself, it obviously was a process of many years. It wasn't in a 20-minute episode, obviously, but that's very much a real thing, that people are, once they were able to meet the other face to face as another human and not just as some amorphous group,
Right.
then they were able to come to terms with it and reconcile and change.
I like how Augie lets the monster have his toys that he thought he had lost. The monster under the bed kept them. And also, he was like, "Oh, I want to be your friend." And he's like, "Monsters aren't allowed to have friends."
Yeah.
I just liked how much so much symbols going on there, and just like you were saying with your story, like it's one and the same.
Right, that was
like
just one
meeting
example,
your
but-
monster. Yeah, meeting that
Exactly.
fear that's a monster, and then once you do meet it, it goes away. So I just thought this was a great episode.
No, it's true, and it's I liked how this episode had that teaching element, like all of them do, while also being the kind of shticky, funny, unusual Halloween episode that it was. Obviously, it was a little different than usual, but it still had that element.
Did you feel like the characters were dressed like Burning Man?
Did I feel like they were dressed like Burning? No, I think when people go to Burning Man, they dress like Girl Meets World. I think you have it backwards. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Yes.
Yes. Have you been to
Yes.
Burning Man?
No, but it's like they had all the goggles, and I've seen everyone's pictures from it. I mean, they were dressed like they were going to Burning Man. It was
Yes.
exclusively
Well,
that steampunk kind of look.
I will hope that these 11 and 12-year-olds
We're not going to.
doing that.
I mean, I think Augie was a vampire, so.
He was just great. Augie, you were great. I always say that every time we have the show. But you were great on this one, and I'm glad you got your own episode.
Me too, and I can't wait to see another episode that he gets by himself. Do you have any predictions, Lee? You gotta roll that scary music. Ooh,
And now,
so
your
appropriate.
AfterBuzz TV predictions.
Is that going to stop? No?
Nope.
Okay.
I forgot to mention, but I like that line
Yeah.
where Riley said, "Your neighborhood's not as scary once you take the mask off."
Oh, I love that line. I'm so glad you brought that up.
Wasn't
Yes.
that great?
Well, that's the same idea, exactly. But that is such a great point. And that is such a... I loved how they basically found a lesson, and a very legitimate one in Halloween observance, so to speak. Like,
Who would've
people just
thought?
think of Halloween, it's silly, it's candy, whatever. Like, no, there is some real serious metaphor and something to learn from masks and what's behind the mask. And I like that they used that, what could have been just kind of a silly Halloween thing. They actually took it, and not in a contrived way, in a very believable way. I think it was a really good line about how you take the mask off things that you're afraid of, and then you see what's really under them, and you're not afraid anymore. And I think that's true with all the fears that we saw in this episode. So I really liked actually how they took what could have been just a silly Halloween episode, and then it had the silly elements,
That's
it had
a
the
great
fun,
point.
it had great Augie doing a lot of dialogue. It was great. And it had the teaching element, and then the thought-provoking element, which is like, a part of this show all the time. So I was happy to see that they did that.
I completely agree, and I just think it's important to note that often those masks are created by us. We
Oh,
put
for
those
sure.
masks on things, so
For sure.
realizing that that's a mental thing that's inside your head, it's not really there, that fear is a mask you're putting on something. I think reflecting on that can help us all get over our little fears.
Well, thank you, Dr. Kristen. And on that note, I'll tell them, you can find Kristen at Cinematic Escape on Twitter. Where
Thank
else?
you.
Twitter, yeah. That's the best place to find you, right?
CinematicsEscape.com is my blog. I'm also on Instagram.
She's everywhere.
I'm everywhere.
Except in the real world. She's all online. No, she's here.
I'm
She's right
under
there.
your bed.
And you can find me at Lee M. Epstein. Twitter, Instagram, find me, Lee M. Epstein. We love when you write to us. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in 2 weeks for 2 more episodes, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock on Mondays. See you.
Bye, guys.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
See you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.